I feel we have quorum. So, Ibrahim, over to you. And I would suggest maybe you could tell the folks who have gathered a little bit more about yourself, the topic
Sure.
you're going to
Yep.
cover, RWAs, and how neobanking is going to be the distribution layer for them. Um, and
Awesome.
yeah, over to you.
So I'll start by sharing my screen and let me know when you guys can see it.
Yeah, we can see.
Yeah, we can.
Cool. Um, so a bit about me. I'm Ibrahim. I'm currently head of product at Fasset. We're a regulated blockchain bank. We currently have about 800,000 customers across 100 countries, mostly on this pan-Islamic belt. We're one of the few regulated platforms right now that is distributing RWAs on scale. So that includes tokenized stocks, Sukooks, and we recently acquired a business out of Pakistan called Dow PropTech that deals in real estate. So um, I would make the bold claim that we're one of the industry leaders in real world assets right now. Myself specifically, I own the crypto, real world assets, stablecoin, and digital banking verticals inside the company. I am a founder and a builder. Before Facet, I was also working in Web3. I started a startup focused on tokenization, which was focused on NFTs, but then I pivoted later to educational credentials. So a lot of the RWA work I've done is also a bit non-financial in nature as well before Facet. My background is in comp sci, mainly in data science and AI. So that's a bit about me. What I'll try to cover in this slide is why RWAs exist, what they actually are, how tokenization works in practice, why RWAs really isn't about tech. I feel like this is one of the biggest misconceptions people have when they start entering the space. They start going into smart contracts, but I'll try to explain why they're very secondary in this particular space. And then since this is something I get asked quite often, maybe how people can start thinking about careers in Web3. So with that said, what are RWAs? So RWAs aren't assets on chain. It's a token that represents a claim to an object that exists off chain. So an example is tokenized stocks, bonds, or kooks. The token itself on chain is not the stock; it's the claim for the underlying. The same goes for retail. You're not bringing real estate on chain. Essentially, you're bringing the claim for it on chain. And this applies to things that are non-financial as well, like the credentials or certificates. So when you're thinking about RWAs, think more along the lines of ownership rights or redemption rights as opposed to sort of the asset itself, because the token is just a token, but it's the representation of something that lives in the real world. So a summary of that is you have an asset off chain. Let's say this is a stock or a real estate. You create a legal structure or custody of this asset, and then you move this sort of claim to this on chain, and then this is accessed by users on chain to sort of buy. Uh, why go through all this trouble, I guess? The problem right now is money is I guess it's global now, but assets are still local, if that makes sense. So an example is stocks in the US traditionally perform the best, but they're not accessible to people in markets like Pakistan or Africa or all of these. So they're very expensive to access, if accessible at all. They're operationally very heavy to own and transfer. Um, Ownership is very paper-based, opaque, and settlement is slow. So what RWAs change here is that assets become sort of on chain, they become fractional and accessible to a broad audience that isn't possible in the TradFi world. Ownership itself, since we've encoded and put it on chain, becomes very clear. And the world moves from this sort of paperwork structure to something that is actually infrastructure. So RWAs aren't a new asset class, so we're not inventing anything. We're just upgrading how assets are owned, moved, and accessed by a broad group of people. With RWAs, I guess next we can speak a bit about tokenization. So, what is tokenization? The I guess the TLDR is 95% of the process is off chain. So, when people think about tokenization, they think there's something cool happening with smart contracts, but essentially it's a very off-chain process to bring an asset on chain and then sell it. So, for example, you're picking an asset, say it's stocks, sukuks, real estate, or gold, and then you're defining a legal wrapper for it. This can be an SPV, trust, or a custodian. You set up this sort of custody structure. So, for example, you'll have a broker, a bank, a vault, sort of hold this. And then once you've done all of this off-chain, real-world stuff, you issue the token. And the token is just a right to sort of this thing. And, of course, you embed some of the things you need to legally start distributing it, like compliance, and then um, at the end of it, you have sort of a neobank slash distribution layer that makes sure that the real world assets that you brought on can actually be distributed to a large audience. So I'll give two examples just to make it clear. One from Facet, and then I guess one from my previous experience tokenizing educational credentials. So take this example of take this workflow, and then let's start mapping it out to an example where we want to tokenize US stocks. Let's say we want to bring Apple on chain, and why we want to bring it on chain is because we want people in Pakistan to be able to access it, to have the same sort of rights or opportunity to invest in a high performing asset. So you'd pick the asset, which in this case would be a public equity. You would define a legal wrapper. So this would be a contractual structure that sort of gives economic exposure to the underlying thing. You would set up custody. So in this case, this would look like a broker or a custodian that holds the if you have something on chain, you need to custody the real asset off chain. Another example is Tether, of course, the biggest real world asset that exists right now. So, um, custody in Tether's case means that they have treasury bonds in the real world that actually represent their token in the blockchain Yeah. So once you have the Apple stock custodied with a broker, you then go on to issue a token. So this token represents exposure to the stock. It's going to map things like dividends, splits, or even corporate actions. And then you embed compliance. So just because it's on chain doesn't mean it's now magically accessible illegally to everyone. You still need to go through some KYC process. So you embed compliance gating into the process. You make restrictions based on whatever your AML policy is or what's required by the underlying asset, and then you distribute and operate. Another example is digital credentials. It's something I worked on as a pilot in my startup for the Malaysian government. So in this case, this is a non-financial object. Um, these are just educational credentials. Let's say a master's degree that you hold. I think Since we have a lot of South Asians on the call, you know how hard it is to get degrees as assets. So the idea was to bring these on chain to make it easy as sort of pulling up a QR code to verify that you actually have these credentials that you're claiming to have. So in this case, your asset would be an educational credential. This could be a degree, a certificate, or a qualification. Your legal wrapper here would be the issuing institution, so the university or body that's issuing this. Custody of this or who's keeping this will actually be with the holder. So if I've graduated, I would have this, or the institution that controls the issuance. Um, then you go on to issue a token that represents the degree. So it represents a verified credential. And then you can work on rules, right? So who can issue these? Is it just institutions? Who can hold these and who can verify these? So of course, you don't want everyone to have access to your credentials. So you need to put in some rules and compliance in place. And then you work on a distribution strategy for this. So I guess the biggest misconception people have with real world assets when they hear this or tokenization for that matter is it's a tech thing or it's some blockchain thing happening. So tech isn't the bottleneck here. It's distribution, it's UX, it's compliance. So um, normal users, for example, don't want wallet setup or seed phrases. So we're all Web3 in this call. These things look very normal. Expect your mom to set up a wallet and remember its a seed phrase. So the UX is a core aspect to sort of distributing this. So um, this is where blockchain neobanks come in. So uh, what this is essentially is the new form of a bank. And what this looks like for a user is sort of similar to what actual banks are right now, but with blockchain underneath. Eh, why RWAs need this is that wallet first distribution strategies break. So key management doesn't make sense for users. Compliance it's not embedded into DeFi. So you do need some guardrails in place, and then capital still enters through banks, right? So we're not living in a world where everyone has a MetaMask wallet. So how money actually moves in and out of so how do we sort of make RWAs accessible to the broader audience? The reality is almost all real money, salaries, saving, revenue, it starts with banking rails. So you go from a bank to sort of a stable coin, which is the bridge layer. You connect the slow world, the old world with the new one. And then this basically becomes sort of your gateway into acquiring these RWAs. So the practical flow is the user sends fiat. This converts into stablecoin. Stablecoin can then allow you to buy tokenized stocks, Sukuks. Um, so in summary, like stable coins aren't the product, but you need to move into stable coins because they're the settlement and transport layer for this Web3 ecosystem that we're building, and this is how you actually acquire real world assets on chain. So what sits under the hood for RWA Neobank? It's a user-facing product. So this could be accounts, balances, the ability to buy, sell things, um, and with all of the Web3-ness of it abstracted. So you don't want like the user to be too overtly concerned with how Web3 works. You have a ledger system, which is your source of truth. So it's going to track fiat, stablecoins, positions, just your recon hub, and then you have banking rails. So you want to bring money in, you want people to be able to on ramp. So this could be IBANs, cards, and then a way to go into a regulated entry and exit. Then you have your sort of stable coin slash treasury layer. So you want to be able to convert the fiat you're in case stable coins. And then of course your just because you brought something on chain doesn't mean it should be accessible to everyone. So you have a compliance layer in this as well. So you want to run KYC, you want to have AML, you want to have sanction screening, and you want to make sure that if you're distributing RWAs off chain, that your users are secure and this asset actually exists off chain. So there's a risk element to this as well. So in summary, like the hard part isn't really blockchain. It's making sure all of these rails work together and make sense to the user. Finally, how to position yourself for a career in Web3. Honestly, on this one, I feel like with the AI tools now, it's become so incredibly easy to build. Um, and in fact, it's become cheap to build as well. So just start building. I think if you are looking to enter this space and you're going to apply for certain positions, you should have some level of build experience, and it's become really, really easy if you use the AI tools. I think AI has taken away the complexity of building prototypes. You have to be very curious. So crypto is changing every day, and I don't think that it's going to find. I think it'll still be in state for the next few years. So you need to have like curiosity. I'd recommend becoming an X or a crypto addict. I think that's the best place for information on what's happening in Web3. The interesting thing about real world assets is you don't need to really know Web3 if you know an area very well. For example, you've worked in gold in your father's business all your life. Then I'd argue you have a better chance at making an actual real world asset product than someone who is Web3 native and knows how to code smart contracts. And then just remember that Web3 is a tool. It's not a solution. So focus on the use case. So that concludes my short talk. Um, Open to any questions you might
Yeah, I
have.
think we have one question from the audience, and thank you, Ibrahim, for that wonderful talk. Uh, where did the question go? I think I one second. Yeah, Resh has asked a question. Ibrahim, it's there on your comments. So, what strategy have you
I
found
can.
for marketing distribution? Do you use Reddit for getting the first 100 diehard users? That's a question from Resh. Hey, Resh, thank you for asking the question. Ibrahim, thoughts?
Yeah. So on this one, specifically with Facet, we aren't targeting the diehard Web3 users for a product. Our philosophy is pretty simple. We're creating a bank. It's not a Web3 bank. It's not a crypto bank. It's just a bank. So we customers that come to us because we're giving access to um, products they won't normally have. An example is we see a lot of traction for our tokenized stocks in markets like Pakistan, Bangladesh, because there's no other avenue to acquire these. And why this is possible is purely because these have been tokenized and available via Web3. But the focus is on the value it provides as opposed to going after specific communities. For example, a simple example is if in Dubai, banks offer a 2% APR, APY on savings, or 2.5. If you can offer 5 through tokenized sukuks out of Malaysia that are now accessible to a UAE audience, you have an immediate use case there that's based on value. And if you this really nice asymmetric difference in value with current products, then we what we've seen is that customers or balances naturally just flow to you as opposed to you reaching out to them. So we're heavily focused on just creating value. But the distribution strategies we use are mostly Web 2-ish. We run ads. We have an Instagram page. Main reason is we're trying to attract the Web 2 audience onto Web 3 as opposed to the other way around.
I think Hassan had a question. Hassan, would you like to go ahead and ask that?
Um,
Uh,
no, definitely, I can ask the question.
right.
For example, do you also publish these proof of reserve reports, like your on-chain and off-chain holdings, if they match and all
Yeah,
this stuff? Okay. And
of
how
course.
often are they?
So no, so definitely, I think it's so if we didn't, then we would never be able to build that trust. So a lot of the times we work with partners to offer these products. We think of ourselves as more of a distribution layer for these. So part of our vetting process is making sure that these assets that they're representing on chain actually exist off chain. So, for example, the tokenized stocks partner that we're working with publishes monthly reports or proof of reserves that are audited by Deloitte. Same with a Sukuk slash bond partner we're working out of Malaysia with. Um, and then when we acquired the real estate startup, tokenized real estate startup, we ensured that those assets match on chain. So definitely we only work with partners when we're absolutely sure their proof of reserve methodologies make sense. But generally, it's like a monthly update, but really varies based on the object. Uh, but short answer is yeah.
How are you going about building the inventory of these assets?
So it's difficult. Honestly, it's a lot of people trying in this space, but very few um, broadly accessible products or commercially usable things. So we have a team that sort of sources these. But there is no easy way. We're extremely early. There are very few players that have good usable things. But in general, when you the amazing thing about Web3 is community. So you do end up meeting sort of like-minded companies or developing synergies very quickly as opposed to if you were a web 2 company. It sort of happens through years of them reaching out to us reaching out to them, connections. There's no defined strategy per se. We mostly go out looking for something and then we find it or don't find it.
Yeah, that. I mean, that's how I think most things work. In terms of
Yeah,
UX, you talked about leveraging strategies for a Web 2.0 audience. For assets across different chains, what are you guys doing in terms of the interoperability, making sure that they
sure.
serve to the user without them having to figure out how to switch?
Yeah. So our focus, at least for Facet or in general, my philosophy as well is just to, so these should be invisible details for the user that comes on chain, which is why I don't necessarily agree with sort of non-custodial products. for the mass audience. So if you ask me myself, I prefer keeping my assets in an when we're talking about mass distribution to people, then custodial is the only way. You need to abstract out whether this is on Ethereum or Solana or any other chain, and you need to just focus on having it up inside a platform where these things are invisible to the user. Otherwise, you're expecting a lot from the user. You're expecting them to learn a chain. You're expecting them to bridge assets into it. You're expecting them to interact with things. So, um, eh, the answer is we abstract all these things from the user so they don't have to learn the differences or nuances between different chains or how they operate.
Makes sense. Rafa, please go ahead.
Hey, Ibrahim, like nice presentation. I just wanted to know, I agree with you with the identification of sources of value. In terms of your target audience, uh, yeah, I'm curious about your process of identifying these values that your audience would be interested in. And in particular, in regards to Bitcoin, do you see
Yeah.
them saving in Bitcoin? Are they interested in getting a yield in Bitcoin? Or like what's your general process in identifying this sort of product and values?
Sure. So our values are based on the markets we serve. For Facet, we're Islamic digital bank. So we try to stay away from things like riba, interest. We Our general segment is sort of the uh, Muslim world looking for high quality assets. So um, that's our general audience. So, for example, bonds or Ondo or yield backed by treasury bills is not something we tend to offer. We have to go more exotic into sukuks from Malaysia because it then we have a unique offering then, but it also serves our markets better. In this Islamic belt is 2 to 3 billion people, so it's not a small market in that sense as well. So in specifically to Facet, we're very um, principally a provider of ethical Islamic Sharia backed, and that's the overarching lens we look at when we're sourcing all of these. In regards to Bitcoin yield, definitely, I think, like any other exchange, I think our largest holding apart from stable coins is in Bitcoin. So any sources of yield for it would be super cool. We have explored Lombard and a lot of the others, but we haven't made the jump yet to actually providing users that yield yet through those products. But I think a yield for Bitcoin could definitely work uh, on scale. But I do think it's also risky. I think the protocols right now don't have enough um, TVL for us to really be confident on providing these to our customers.
By the way, we have 4 minutes over the time that we initially allocated. Ibrahim, do you have more time to take
Yeah,
more
yeah, I can
questions?
go on for a couple minutes. Yeah.
Awesome. So other folks would like to stay on for the Q&A to continue. I mean, you're most welcome. We do have another question from Resh. Resh, you wanna go ahead, ask the question?
Sure. Thanks, Faizan. Ibrahim, just from my understanding, even though you're building a Web3 platform, you're operating in Malaysia, Bangladesh, and Pakistan. Do you need money transmitting license for this particular product? The first one. Second
Yeah.
thing is because you're tokenizing real world assets, does that also involve having securities license, or you're not
Yeah.
required to do that?
So we hold a lot of regulatory authorizations. So from the top of my head, we're regulated by WARA in the UAE, by Bapati in Indonesia. We have something coming up in Turkey as well. We have an onshore and offshore license in Malaysia, which is both a VASP license and digital banking license. Um, we have one in Bahrain as well. Some of our licenses give us access for local distribution, while others, particularly the one in Malaysia, gives us access to global. So we try to comply to as many local regulations as you can where they exist. Where it's unregulated, we sort of operate in the same way that Binance or OKX does, which is in sort of this gray area that exists. So with Pakistan in particular, there's no one with regulation, but again, it's not illegal to distribute virtual assets either. It's just unregulated, and they're making a lot of stride on sort of formalizing this being the fourth biggest market for crypto. And we are part of those discussions. So we are very regulation first, unlike like so Binance and OKX. So our strategy has always been to sort of get locally regulated wherever we can.
So if I may ask a follow-up question, Faizan, can I?
Go
Yeah.
ahead.
So just because I come from Malaysia, so I can understand the demand there. Even the Prime Minister is seriously pushing for these kind of
Yep.
services. What I want to get ahead is that how do you get the yield? Because crypto essentially, for the better word, doesn't actually follow the Islamic laws when they
Yeah,
lend out the
yeah.
money. So
No,
how do you avoid the
100%.
riba aspect?
100%, and we spend a ton of time. So any other app, if they want to offer yield, they can literally just get Ondo, connect to APIs. We took the long route. We are using Sakuks that are based in Lebanon, which is an island in Malaysia. They are IILM backed, which is the Islamic Liquidity Management Authority. They are the second largest provider of Sukuks. So we work with a partner that tokenizes these, and then we distribute them via platform. So the 4% that we offer on our platform is not backed by riba. They're backed by Sukuks. We do provide Sharia ratings for these inside our product as well. If you're interested in the inner workings or um, how we think this is a Sharia compliant offering, but the short answer is we're not doing T-bills, we're doing Sakuks for this yield.
Okay, we have a couple of questions from Rafa. You want to go ahead, Rafa?
Yeah, sure. Just a follow-up questions in terms of what are you looking for when you integrate some of these protocols? Like you mentioned TVL. Is there some other parameters you're looking for when you see like a good opportunity and you start your due diligence? And the second question is, do you offer leverage products?
So I'll take the second one first. No leverage options or anything. We we were building for the greater good, if that makes sense. I think giving leverage to the mass audience is a bit it's a bit unethical in our principal framework. So no yield, we offer spot only on the platform. What we look for, of course, we look for TVL, but um, we start with the asset, right? So we want to, for example, we wanted a savings product that offers Sharia compliant yield. We went out and somehow landed on in offshore Malaysia. So it starts with the use case. TVL is flexible if the team is legit, if they're nice to work with, if their method of tokenization, and all of those things make sense. So TVL, of course, is the biggest parameter, but if that doesn't exist, we're still open to working with them if um, they are coming from the right place. But as I said, there are a lot of options for real world assets in this space, so we do sort of give everyone a chance on this.
So Ibrahim, coming back to the question of UX, obviously with all of these assets now coming onto the platform, I would imagine that users would have a hard time focusing on the ones that are suitable for them. So how would you guide them into making the right decisions, or obviously decisions suitable for them?
Yeah. So we don't advise them on products, but we try to list them by risk appetite. So, for example, we our app is structured like a bank. If you want a steady 4% savings product, it's labeled as savings. We make sure price fluctuations for assets are clearly listed inside the platform along with all potential risks. Our asset screening policy sort of we don't do crypto, for example, we don't do anything beyond the top 100 coins. And that's a conscious decision to not let the uh, person buy a random meme coin and lose 99% of their fund. So by design, most of the assets we offer are high quality, if you could say so. Um, but even so, we try to give as many risk parameters as we can during this, but we don't generally advise on what they should or should not invest in. The personal decision. For example, right now, our two best-selling products are tokenized gold and tokenized silver. They're not actually Bitcoin in the last couple of months. So, um, uh, yeah. So,
Yeah, obviously traditional banks would have some sort of a concierge service. Is that also in some way
yeah.
incorporated in
Um,
experience? Yeah.
Not yet, but we might make forays into like this sort of private banking structure where we might advise customers. But for now, we're mostly self-serve at the moment, much like the other brokerage slash exchange platforms.
Any AI? I'm sure you get asked this question a lot. Any AI use case pipeline?
AI use case, we want to solve our support first via AI before we start telling customers to go 20x long on Bitcoin. So um, that's what we have in the pipeline. We have the coolest chatbot ever called Noor that we're releasing next month. And the idea for Noor would be just to educate the user on um, digital assets, how they work. So our audience is one step behind the Web3 audience. They don't know anything when they're coming into the app. So Noor will function as that sort of guide or teacher to get them in the app. And then if they have any problems, they can sort of interact with it to solve.
Vasi, go ahead.
Simple question, but I've heard a lot of horror stories about people struggling with off-ramp in Pakistan. So the bank comes
Yeah,
later to
yeah,
them. What has
yeah,
your experience been with, have people
yeah.
off-ramped from Facet and have they run
Yes.
into issues, or is that not an issue for you?
Um, so before I came into Facet, I've been in Web3 for 5 years. My bank accounts have been shut down like 3 or 4 times. One time they wouldn't unlock it. So I know these horror stories because I've lived through them in Pakistan. It's very hard to off-ramp. What we've done here that makes it different is that our merchants are vetted. So we're not going for scale on the merchant level. We have 8 or 9 that are operating at one time. And we know exactly who those 8 or 9 are. For Pakistan in particular, this happens because of chargebacks, scams, and all of those things when the other counterparty isn't trusted. But we've gone for a different approach. The merchants that we have are our merchants as opposed to random people that are just coming into the P2P order book like Binance. And we've seen a pretty cool use case there where people are now using us as sort of their go-to on and off ramp as well because they know they won't get some weird chargeback happening and their account shut down.
Uh, that is good to hear because I think that's been the challenge, at least locally for
Yeah.
us.
Let me have another question from Rafa. Rafa, you want to go ahead?
And sorry, I have
On
many
on
questions.
No worries, no.
So I was curious, like, several questions, like perhaps the Lombard due diligence. It would be interesting to know, like, what wasn't exactly there for you to go forward with that product. And then perhaps in terms of presenting products to users, you said you don't do financial advice, but do you perhaps classify or order certain products in terms of risk params? And I have a last question
course.
in terms of difficulty to integrate on-ramp. That's a very interesting one. Like, what was the most difficult part for integrating on-ramping?
Sure. So I'll start with Lombard. I'm not sure I wasn't the one that vetted it. Personally, I think it's a super cool protocol. If you can get 2% on Bitcoin, why not? But I'm not aware of the specifics of why we never ended up going for that. But in general, we'd love to offer Bitcoin yield on the platform. I think that's a killer product in bringing in
I'm curious whether it was perhaps
Bitcoin.
some scalability issue, but yeah, sorry to interrupt.
It's also like it's my understanding of so the protocol is so Lombard's yield. My understanding is comes from sort of if people use it as a POS in other protocols and it offers security. So they're settling on Bitcoin, and the fact they're settling on Bitcoin, it's just creating value, and this value is being given back to the user. My understanding is the network isn't all that active. So where is that yield coming from? Is it points? Is it not? But these are just my guesses on why we didn't go for it. But I'll have to reach back to you on this. On the part on and off ramps, this is, I guess, the most difficult thing for a crypto exchange, making sure you have enough on and off ramps in each market. There are some providers now that help with this. I would suggest checking out you.network. They're one of our partners that give you on ramps in 100 different markets. PSPs lately have become very open to working with crypto exchanges. And then, of course, our strategy is still to get regulated on ground. So, for example, in UAE, Indonesia, Malaysia, we have local bank accounts that people can use to on ramp. We also recently launched a US dollar account inside the app. So you have your own IBAN that you can send money into. So that's made it easier for people to on ramp. But I think for exchanges, the that's on and off ramp is always the blocker in sort of just taking over market. Because it's a chicken and egg thing. If you're talking about Pakistan, why would merchants come to you if you don't have liquidity? So it's the so short answer is we spend the most amount of time in figuring out our on and off ramp rails at Facet.
100%.
All right, any more questions? Awesome. Ibrahim, thank you so much for taking out the time. This was a wonderful talk, and thank you for everyone. Thank you to everyone for all the questions and the wonderful conversation as well, followed by the talk. And yeah, we'll be sure to follow with another one, another lightning talk soon. So yeah, we'll reach out to you guys for that one. And Ibrahim, thank you once again.
No,
Take
thanks for
care.
having me. It's a lot of fun.
It's a
Take
pleasure.
care, guys.
Yep, take care, everybody. Bye bye.